Okay, so let us start off with the big question that all his fans want to know. On the Fairly Odd Parents, who is the most powerful? Is it Wanda, Cosmo, Poof, or someone else?
Wow, tough question. This is probably not the answer you think that I was going to give. I'd probably say, because he only says one word and still has the same power as everybody else, I think it's probably Poof. Did I freak you out with that answer?
From the heart of Hollywood, it's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show with Patrick Labyorteaux.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show. Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.
Tonight's episode, Butch Hartman.
Patrick Labyorteaux Show. He's the one you gotta know.
We made a ton of jokes about that back in the day where Poof is a little round circle and he's the fairy baby. And then we came up with an enemy, an arch enemy for him, who's an anti-fairy named Foop. His name is backwards, Foop. And Foop is a square. And Foop is very articulate and he's very evil and he's very, I will destroy you. And his life's goal is to destroy Poof, of course. And so all Poof has to say is, Poof, Poof. And an audience will stand to their feet. That was brilliant. Oh, my goodness. The whole place just comes unglued. And Poof's like, he's just saying his name. What are you people? I don't understand why you're such a big fan. But coming up with a funny, frustrated villain is always one of the big pluses of any cartoon.
Act 1, Beginnings. Okay, today's going to be really fun. We are going to be talking to a friend of mine who I have known for way too long. We're way too young to know each other this long period of time. Okay, so this is really fun. I found this in the archives. In 1988, my friends took me down to Hollywood so we could watch a movie at the Chinese Theater. And our other friends met us there, including Butch Hartman, on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And this is how it went. Butch is on the far right in the Ray-Bans.
Pat, I saw your star on Hollywood Bowl. I think I saw it. Can I have your autograph?
You bet, sure.
Please? A pen. I don't have... I'll buy a pen.
Here's a pen.
No one's hurt, ladies and gentlemen. It's okay.
Here, sign my arm.
Pat, I can't find... Oh, she's got a pen.
He is an animator who, if you ever have kids or if you've ever turned on Nickelodeon, you've seen his work. Please welcome the amazing Butch Hartman.
Hey, I'll do a spin. I'll spin into camera here. I'll just spin around. Hello, everybody. Butch Hartman here. Hey, man.
How animated of you.
Hey, I love that. I know. I've got Mickey Mouse shoes on underneath this. You can't even see. Thanks, man. It's good to see you, Mr. Labyorteaux. It has been a while, but always a joy.
So let me give a little bit of history. It should be a regular part of the show because I'm talking to my friends, and I've known Butch, I want to say since the 80s.
Oh, no, for sure. I met you, and I'll guarantee I'll tell you the year I met you. I met you in 1987.
Whoa.
Yeah, because I was working at an animation studio called Ruby Spears Productions.
Right.
In 1987. And just a young kid, one of my first jobs. And there was a gentleman who worked there who was a writer, and he had an improv class. And he would always say, you got to come to the improv class. You got to come to the class. And I had no idea what improv was. I was terrified to go. But I knew I wanted to be kind of an actor kind of guy a little bit. So I thought, I'll go to the class. And that's where I met you, was in that improv class.
And that guy, the writer, was Mike Chain?
It was Mike Chain. Yeah, Mike Chain was his name.
Wow.
I have not seen Mike. I have not seen him for the longest time, but he was a super talented guy and such a nice guy. But I really ran a great improv class called Mice. You and I were part of Mice, M-I-C-E. And you, my friend, were so great at improv. You were like someone I looked up to, like, my God, this guy makes it look so easy. I was terrible. And I really...
Not true. Not true. No, not true.
Learned a lot.
I think the thing about improv, which is really fun, is it's an exercise. Obviously, it starts as an exercise for actors, and then you get into performance improv, which we can go on to later when we talk about Mice. But it's more of a challenge for the actor than it is a performance type of style. So a lot of times we're dealing with things that obviously we're putting you on stage, and you're dealing with the fear that you have. And once you get past that, then you can have something that there's
enough fear of going on stage with a script, but it's absolute terror going on stage with no script, and then with people you pretty much just met. and trying to come up with a story, hoping they understand where you're going. And I really admire people that are great at it. Like people that I eventually graduate to Saturday Night Live or whatever it is they do. Just such talented, but it really helped me years later. I never knew this, of course, I was young, but as I got more into writing and writing scripts and having to come up with things off the cuff or having to write a script in a week, that improv training paid off like you can't believe. I'm so glad that I was part of that.
Well, I want to get into that because all the characters on your show, which I think distinguishes Fairly OddParents and Danny Phantom, but mainly Fairly OddParents for the comedy, they were fully formed characters as opposed to pun intended, sketches
Right.
of an idea of who you might think would be, on a TV show. So just to wrap this aspect of it up. So Butch and I met at this improv place. You were actively acting on camera, and you were also at Hanna Barbera when I met you at some point.
Close. I was at this other studio that I'd
Ruby
Spears, and then I'd gone to
Okay.
Hanna Barbera shortly thereafter. Yes, sir.
Okay. And so that's how long we've known each other. And then we went off on our own different journeys, and here we are.
Yeah.
So let's start off at the beginning. You're a young, gregarious young person, but I have no idea where, why, how did you get to Hollywood? Why did you come to Hollywood? What's your story, dude?
Oh, thank you, man. Well, I was rocketed to Earth from the doomed planet Krypton, and I was found by Ma and Pa Kent. Anyway, no, I was actually from the state of Michigan, which was not doomed. It's a beautiful state. I was born and raised in Michigan, and in the snow and the cold, and grew up in the '70s as a full-on nerd kid. I grew up loving cartoons, loving movies, loving comic books. I come from a blue-collar town where hardly anybody was into that stuff. Everybody else was into sports and into, whatever else they were doing. And I wanted to stay inside and watch TV. I wanted to watch Saturday morning cartoons. I was around when Dungeons and Dragons first became a thing. If you watch the show Stranger Things, that was my childhood, minus the real monsters,
Were you a Marvel or DC guy, or were you
at the time? Oh, very good question. At the time, I was a DC guy because I loved things like the Legion of Superheroes. I loved like the Flash and Batman. I got into Marvel because of Spider-Man, and obviously, but now I would say I'm a little more Marvel now, but I still love both. I got a real soft spot in my heart for both. I love both. I love comic books so much because of the stories they create, the characters they create, the worlds you can go into. We're nothing without the stories that we follow and that we tell. Everyone loves a good story, everybody. And
well, I'm going to stay here just for a little minute because I do think that's super important because as kids, I always felt, and I think that the normal or the general idea that people agree upon is DC was like Greek gods and Marvel was like street level reality. And so as a kid, when you're looking as younger kids, you start off in DC and you kind of graduate to Marvel.
True.
And the storytelling is of gods, like even what's his name, who's running the show over there. Gods and Monsters is his chapter because it's sort of like that's what DC's about.
Right.
That's Superman, Wonder Woman. Obviously Batman is their street level guy, but all of them, like you mentioned, the Legion of Superheroes. Like there's Lightning Kid and all the Karate Kid and all the like every possible type of version and Superboy and all that stuff.
That was actually the X-Men before X-Men was a thing. Like X-Men, X-Men is the tragic version of Legion of Superheroes. Like Legion of Superheroes, they're all these glorious, gorgeous teenagers, with spandex outfits from the future.
From the future where Superboy travels just for his day job. And then, but if you really want to go down that well, it would be the Doom Patrol, which was I think was out before X-Men that Marvel kind of borrowed heavily from, including a guy in a wheelchair and all these different crazy. Okay. So the reason why I stopped here was story structure and everything, as we will talk about later. Because everyone thinks that as an animator, that all you do is draw. But every line in a drawing is to tell a story. Like looking at Danny Phantom behind you, it's super dynamic, but you can tell he's a hero on a dramatic mission by the way his eyebrows are, the way his fist is drawn. You're telling stories with art. And so your storytelling started very early with the comic book. So you're in Michigan.
In Michigan.
And And so, how do you get from there to Hollywood? And don't
Read,
say airplane.
I won't say that. No problem. Well, I real brief. I was grew up loving cartoons, obviously comic books, whatever. And then I ended up finding those little pockets of nerd friends that we all find in our life. And a couple of these guys went to a different school than I went to. They both went to different schools. I was a sophomore. I met a friend who was a junior and another friend who was a senior. And the guy who was a senior was this guy in Michigan like me, but he was a little older than me, but he was an amazing artist. He was incredible, like Disney level at that age. He was 18, but he was a Disney level artist. And he had an animation studio in his basement of his house. And I would go over there, we'd go hang out, and I would just look at all of his stuff. And I got super inspired to do what he was doing because that's what I wanted to do. But I didn't even know how to do it or even how I would go about it. I just loved drawing. My parents were big, supporters, but how's this kid going to make a living drawing, all that stuff. So my friend, the older one, he found a school in California called CalArts, which is the California Institute of the Arts, which was founded by Walt Disney. And so this is back way before the internet. So we had pamphlets. He goes, I'm already going. I'm already registered to go. You need to get your portfolio together if you're going to do this. So for the next 2 years, all through 11th grade and 12th grade, his name was Dan. Wonderful guy. Dan was in school in California, and I would send Dan drawings in the mail with stamps, send him drawings. He would grade them and send them back to me. And I was this kid in high school, like going over these drawings. I'm getting drawing books by old Disney artists. Again, no internet. So you're going to the library, finding these books. I'd go to
Seven Old Men. Yeah.
Yeah. 9 Old Men, actually. But I would
9 Old Men. Sorry.
That's right.
7 dwarves, 9 old men.
Counting us, there's 11 old men now. So, but I would go and I would get these books and I would, study all these new books. Like there was one new book called Disney Animation by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson that came out back in 1980. A long story short, ended up working on my portfolio. I was at the Detroit Zoo even in the winter, freezing cold, drawing, pandas and drawing gorillas and things like that. And then I got accepted into the school. I graduated school in June of 83 and I got accepted to CalArts and I was in California by September of 83.
I had no idea, or maybe I forgot that you were at CalArts. CalArts, for those who don't know, you've explained it, but it's like the preeminent animation place. If you drop a Pixar movie, like 90% of the people went to CalArts. Certainly the people that wrote and directed.
And everybody I went to school with, pretty much. I probably went to school with maybe 40 or 50 people in different grades. I became a freshman in college in the different levels of, but pretty much everybody running the industry now went to school with me in the early to mid 80s.
Wow.
So I know I don't say this to name drop, but I mean, I know a ton of people at Pixar. I know a ton of people at Disney, and we all came out of that school. Yeah, of course, there's others who didn't, but I mean, but
I mean, literally, isn't there? What's the number? A35 or A? There's one art class.
Yeah, A113.
Explain that because I don't know it, but I know enough about it to get in trouble.
At CalArts in the animation and the floor where the animation classes were, there was one classroom. I think it was the life drawing classroom or the design classroom, and the classroom's number was A113. And so that's why it's kind of an inside joke to all CalArts people. Oh, A113, and there it is. So I think that's in every Pixar movie. I think that. That number,
it's like John Ratzenberger and A113 are in every movie.
Exactly.
And this was also CalArts is up in Santa Clarita,
Valencia. It was Valencia.
Valencia.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep.
And it's right off the 5. And it was built there at a time when there was really nothing there except like a truck stop,
except the school. Yeah,
and the school.
Yeah, when I got up there, right off McBean Parkway, when I got up there, it was basically the school and a bunch of sheep farmers, and there were a couple little 1980s Karate Kid neighborhoods around there, and that was about it,
Which, funnily enough, we shot Three Ninjas in that one of those Karate Kid neighborhoods, and we shot Jag in a warehouse about up 1 mile off of Magic Mountain Parkway.
Yeah.
But you were probably there when Tips was still there, the big margarita place.
Tips was there, and that was this giant, like a truck stop / restaurant. And in fact, speaking of Magic Mountain, between my freshman and sophomore year of CalArts, I stayed at school. You could actually rent a dorm room, like an apartment, and stay there. So I stayed there. I didn't want to go back to Michigan. I wanted to stay in California for the summer, right? So I stayed there, and I got a job at Magic Mountain drawing caricatures of people. That was one of my first jobs. I'd make like I'd make like $500 a week doing people. I'm talking like, hey, what's your name? Patrick. Come on up, Patrick. Turn that way and face that way. So you'd face that way, and I would draw you. And I draw you riding a shark or something, fishing, I did pretty well. And but I would ride my 10-speed bike from CalArts to Magic Mountain and get there. That's how I got there.
It was a magical place. I had a girlfriend that went to CalArts, and so I know those dorm rooms, and they are decked out with everything. You had concrete walls, concrete floors. They gave you a window and a door. It was pretty luxurious.
Swag, dude. I'm talking like and that carpeting was at least 25 years old. That carpeting. Yeah, I don't know who was president when they put the carpeting in, but you know what though? Those experiences though, I look back on them. I actually learned more. We had some great instructors, old Disney folks that would come in and give us instructions. We had teachers, but I learned more by being with the other students than I did from anybody else. I often talk about this when I teach anyone who's trying to get to their vision. I always say, look, you need to immerse yourself in what you want to do. If you want to play baseball, you hang out with baseball players. If you want to play piano, you go hang out with piano players. You don't go hang out. You need to be immersed in what you do because you're going to be thinking about it constantly, talking about it constantly, and you're going to be gearing yourself toward that goal. And so I had no idea at the time that's what I was doing, but I look back on it now and I go like, man, God really had his hand in my life back then, because even though I didn't know what I was doing, I was really working toward my goal ultimately of being not just an artist, like you said earlier. People think when you're an animator or doing animation, all you do is draw. That's a key component of it. But if you're not telling a good story, no one's going to care about what you're drawing at all.
Exactly. And I have I've learned so much just by doing the small number of shows I've done here. When I talk to people, like you say, God had a hand in your life, or, it's like you're giving respect to the opportunities that are placed in front of you in life. But you were the one at the zoo. You were the one sending in the pictures. You were the one drawing. You were the one putting in all the work. And all these people that I get a chance to talk to, like, I'll drop the name Carol Burnett. It's like she put in all the work. It's like she's Carol Burnett. She's got the talent. Come on. But you got to put in the work behind it. It just doesn't appear 100%. Out of nowhere.
No, it's true. That's
what
that's
you're
another,
saying is absolute.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry, but that's another principle we need to understand. There's a phrase in the Bible called seed time and harvest. You plant the seed, you give it time, and then something will grow. A lot of us want the harvest, and we forget about the planting and the time part. I want the cake on the Betty Crocker box. I want that cake. I want to make that. It's like, well, you got to break the eggs. You're going to screw up the first version of the cake 100 times until that cake comes out. Trust me. So, everyone gets frustrated and they want to quit. And I get it, man. Everybody wants to quit. Nobody wants to. Discouragement, especially in Hollywood, as you well know, as an actor and a writer and a producer, you're going to get 90% discouragement every day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That 10% of success, and it really is 10% success, comes with 90% discouragement every time. The thing is, you've got to look at the rewards as being greater than the discouragement, because the discouragement is just another opportunity to succeed. That's all it is.
So this is great. So now you're in California at CalArts, and I got to say, at that time, in that period, that area, it's like the best version of California. It's beautiful out there.
Yep.
You've got all this art going on. When I met you, in fact, I think I met you prior to you coming into Mice. Did I meet you at a Growing Pains audition, or was that when you were in Mice?
No, I was auditioning for Growing Pains and doing stuff like that. I think I had just started coming to Mice at the time. I don't think I met you. I remember meeting you for the first time, and I could be wrong, but I met you at like a Mice, an evening that we did, like, the class.
Here's my story. Here's my side of the Growing Pains audition. So I'm a serious actor because I'm like 19 or whatever, however old I was.
Right.
And I go in, they give me, Growing Pains. Growing Pains is a big show. And back in the day, there was only a couple of shows on TV, so you could make a lot of money. It was a big deal, and it really was a good thing on your resume. And I'm in there, and this kid walks up to me, and he's like, "Man, I really think you're amazing," and like super, super, like, complimentary and not throwing me off my game, just a really nice guy. And I'm like, "Oh, wow, good luck, kid," in my head. And then that kid booked the job, and that kid was you. And I was like, son of a gun. He booked the job, and he was still nice.
That was me.
That was you. You were like, "Oh, you're so funny." And I'm like, I remember being like, usually in an audition, you don't talk to the other people because you're in your own head, but you were like all super cool and super nice about it. But again, because I'm petty, when it came on and I found out that you got the job, I'm like, "Oh yeah, the nice guy got it." So you're at CalArts.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're heavy into animation.
Yep.
How did the acting aspect come into it, and how then did it go away? Because you're not.
Good question, man. And that's a very good question. That's such a long ago part of my life, but it's so interesting because I was at CalArts. And I did a couple of game shows, believe it or not. I auditioned for a couple of game shows back in the 80s because a friend of mine who I was very close to at school was like, "Hey, they're auditioning for this game show. It's called the Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour." And it was where you'd watch Match Game for the first half of the hour, hosted by Gene Rayburn. And then the second half of the hour was Hollywood Squares, was an hour-long game show because game shows were huge back then. And he goes, "You want to go audition for the heck of it?" We're like, "Okay." Never been to a game show audition. I'm new in Hollywood from Michigan. I've been there 2 months, right? Or a month even. We go down to like Sunset and Wilcox, where the office was, go in there, and I got the game show. I was put on the game show. I'm 18 years old, and I'm a contestant now on the Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour. And I won like $2,600. I was the champ of the episode. And then I got
a huge amount of money for a student in Valencia.
That's a huge amount of money. Oh, trust me, in the 80s, $2,600. In fact, I paid $2,600 to be on this podcast. So, but
that's true.
But the next year, I auditioned for another game show called Body Language, which was hosted by Tom Kennedy, and it was a charade show. You had to act out charades with a celebrity guest, and so I became my celebrity guest partner was Ed Begley Jr., and we crushed it. We won the show. And on that episode, I won $17,000.
What?
I did. I won in 1985. And so I did 2 game shows. And through that process, we do a whole podcast on game shows and the waiting room of a game show. But during the course of that, I started meeting people who were actors and people who were in Hollywood. And I was young with a lot of hair and all that. You should be an actor. And maybe I should explore this a little bit. I wanted to see what that was about. So I actually met a lady who was a manager of actors, and she got me some auditions, and that's how I started auditioning for parts in Hollywood.
I like how you threw in you had a lot of hair, like that was a prerequisite. And the funny thing you're absolutely right. The hair you had in the 80s, Richard Marx would be jealous. $17,000, does that pay for your college? It certainly pays for life. So what happens to your life at that point?
Well, at that point, I got the money, and I was still in school. It's my second year of school. I had to buy a car. I had no car for the first year of school. So I bought myself a used car, and I just lived off that money. I was very
I'm the worst interviewer. I can't believe you were at CalArts without a car. Again, me being the California kid, it's off the 5. That's fine. Yep. But like you said, you could 10 speed to Magic Mountain or maybe get a margarita at Tips, but that's it. How did you get around?
Well, I had friends, and then friends with cars. And then when I started auditioning, a buddy of mine would loan me his car. I got to hand it to this friend of mine. And again, he's a friend that ended up going on to direct some amazing Disney films. Incredible guy. He would loan me his car. And I would drive to these auditions, and he was probably biting his nails. Oh my God, where's Butch going with my car?
We'll be back after these messages. Hey there, my name is Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV. And I also have this acting school called Working Actors School. And what we do there is we teach people to act using Zoom. So you can take an acting class with me and with a person in Connecticut, in Florida, and San Diego all at the same time, thanks to the miracle of Zoom. And I'm very excited to announce that we have a brand new class called Adult Weekly Class. Now, what is that? Now, that's a class that'll meet every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, and you come in and you have an hour-long acting class with other students. It's very, very simple, very, very fun. So if you've ever wanted to be an actor or try it or just mess around, these classes are great. So the Adult Weekly Class is going to be every Wednesday at 5:30 Pacific. Now come and check it out. It's going to be really fun. Go to workingactorschool.com. Check out the website. You can sign up for the class there. If you need any other information, there's a phone number and an email on the website. You can get it there. And we would love to have you come and try. Talk to you soon. Act 2, Success.
I left CalArts after 3 years. I couldn't afford my 4th year. And I realized very quickly at that time, you don't really need a degree in animation to get a job. If I could draw, I could get the job. But I needed to go through those 3
and all
years.
the connections from CalArts, which is, again, the
All
preeminent.
those,
there was
exactly.
Pasadena Design College, and that was about it, and RISD, maybe back east. And those are the 3 that I could
There
think
was one called Chenard Institute, was an art institute, I think, back then.
Okay.
But I went to CalArts, and then ended up, I got a job while I was at CalArts. Another friend of mine, he goes, hey, Don Bluth is looking for in-betweeners on this brand new movie that he's doing called American Tail. Now, we're at our desks at school, like, really? All I got to do is go down and take a test. An in-betweener is someone who takes the key poses of animation, like one arm's here, one arm's here. The in-betweener puts the in-between. It's the non-sexy part of animation. Back in the day, they would have in-betweeners. So it's
so a key. Who does the other stuff? The main animator, the character says that you start from here and then you end here, right? And then you draw all of the.
And the in-betweener would do all the boring drawings in between. And the in-betweener would get paid a lot less than the animator as well. But still, hey man, let's go get a job. So we all go, 3 of us go down to Don Bluth Studios, which was in Van Nuys at the time. We go there, and they gave us 2 drawings each. Here's these 2 drawings. Go take an in-between test. So we all go back to CalArts. We're up all night doing our one drawing that goes in between. And so finally we come back early the next morning, turn our things in. The lady takes one look at them. Great, you're hired. And she comes out with these giant stacks of drawings. Here's your first scene, ka-thunk. And so then we're like, oh my gosh, we just got our first animation job and we're still in school. So we go back to school, and my first scene ever that I ever professionally animated or worked on was an American Tail. And it's a scene where Fievel the mouse is asleep and he's going like this. He's just breathing in and out. That's all he's doing. And I got paid like $1,000 to do like 5 drawings in this scene, because they would pay you based on the amount of footage the scene took. Like if it was a 10-second or 40 seconds or a 2-minute scene. And so one drawing in a breathing cycle, it's called, I got paid a lot. But my next scene was really short, but it had like 50 characters in it. It was like a scene where there's a bunch of people like on a bunch of people dressed in 18th century outfits having a party on a lawn. And I was like, oh, dear Lord. And you're trying to do all this with people with top hats.
And this is not the type of time where you have the models and you just, click and repeat. You're drawing.
Oh God, no, you're doing
characters.
It's all hand drawn, all hand and eye. We had Xerox machines, but we didn't hardly ever use them. It was like, there was no cut and paste. There was no Photoshop. There was no flash animation, nothing. We're talking old school, paper and pencil.
So this story amazes me for a number of reasons. One, Don Bluth was a Disney guy. He broke away. He became the only other kind of animator. I guess there was a couple of other. Ralph Bashki was out there, but Don Bluth was one of the big ones. He had Dragon's Lair, which was the video game, which was really big. And American Tail was huge.
And
Space Ace,
his other game. Yeah.
And the Secret of NIMH and a bunch of other stuff that came around. So Don Bluth is like a huge thing. the fact that they gave you art to take away from the studio would never happen anymore. I mean, what happens if you spill your coffee or do anything, or someone takes it from CalArts? Oh my gosh.
It's called budgets. They didn't have a huge office. I take it back to whatever desk you have and make it happen. So I did American Tail for about 3 months. I didn't get any credit on the movie because I didn't do enough footage to make the credits, apparently. They said you got to do like 200 feet of animation. I think I did like 150 feet or something. So I never got credit on screen, but that was my first job. I was on American Tail.
Do you ever end up seeing it on cable and waiting for that moment?
Oh, all the time. And I've even at the comic conventions I do now, I see Don all the time. And he didn't remember me at the time because I only saw him for like 5 minutes that first time. But I always remind him, hey, we were my first employer. I worked for you. He's like, oh, great. He's the nicest guy in the world. And in fact, I have a drawing he did for me over here in my office. But sweetest guy in the world. And so we talk a little bit. And but what a great guy. And I was just, what a great experience for a kid from Michigan. To be on a game show, and to start working with, Don Bluth, and I mean, it really is when you really set your sights on something. Again, you got to be ready for that opportunity, though. What if someone had said, "Hey, they're looking for animators for Don Bluth," and you go, "Well, thanks, but no thanks." See, that's how dreams are crushed through fear. And I'm always trying to encourage people not to have any fear. Like, well, I'm afraid. Well, look, everybody's afraid, but the ones who succeed are the ones who face the fear and get over it. Like you look at Elon Musk, that guy gets attacked horribly every day, but he's still doing what he loves to do and does what he wants to do. He succeeded somehow, even though certain people don't like him or some people love him, whatever. But, as an artist, I tell people all the time, there's a day that's going to come. You've got to hang your art on the wall like this. You got to hang it up.
Yeah.
And someone's going to like it and someone's going to hate it. But who cares? You know what? You want the ones who love it. Great. If they hate it, they're only hating it because you're doing what they've always wanted to do. And a lot of people are afraid to do it. And I would never, to sit and criticize somebody and to go online and bash people, it's just like, I can't believe people would do that, but they do. And you just have to put up with it,
Well, what's interesting in a creative world is you're guaranteed that people are not going to like it and guaranteed that people are going to love it because we all have different likes and dislikes. Yep. It's the people that go that extra mile to make you feel bad about something that just adds weird energy. So we won't deal with them. So you're in your dream. You're going out for on-camera auditions. What was it? And now we're at Mice, and Mice it was Mike's Improv Comedy Experiment is what he called it. And we would go to these small theaters. We performed in the back of a deli to like 4 drunk people. Gio's was on Sunset.
That's right. It was
kind of like our
Gio's was where we would do our class all the time.
Yep.
It was called Gio's. That's right, man. And we found it, Pat. We found it without using navigation or internet instructions.
Well, we did have a Thomas guide, or at least you should have had a Thomas guide in the back of your car. But so what we would do is it was this improv show that was kind of, Mike had done so many comedy shows, like once a week we were there, but he had been doing it for years, that, you'd ask for a restaurant and you'd see what going to that restaurant would be like. We'd done so many that we basically had written scenes that we would then perform based on comedy jokes that had worked. It was improv, but it wasn't improv, but the classes were real improv. And we had a lot of fun. We met a lot of people. My brother and I were there, you were there, Karen Brown, who was like a huge Mattel executive, was there. Just like a weird bunch of,
I remember there was a guy from Taxi that was there. Randall Carver. He was there for a bit. I remember Martin Landau showed up once. The actor Martin Landau. I remember that. I was like, wow, Martin Landau. That's interesting. Yeah.
So that's where we kind of got to know each other. You were doing on camera. You did, when I was looking at your IMDb, it said you did a bunch of Punky Brewsters. Was that as a model? But was that you, or is that the show?
Punky Brewster was
an animated show.
There was an animated show. That's one of the few. That's one of the first animated shows I ever worked on. I worked on Punky Brewster. That was at Ruby Spears when I first got there. Because after I got out of CalArts, I just started getting jobs in the industry. I had no choice. I didn't want to go back to Michigan because I was living my dream. I'm going to make this work. Right. And so I got my first job was at Marvel Productions. I got hired there.
Wow, how cool.
Yeah, I
The
thought
one
I'd be
over on Sepulveda?
the one on Sepulveda, right? I thought I'd be drawing like Spider-Man and the Hulk and Captain America. My first job was My Little Pony. So I got a job on My Little Pony. But the really bad My Little Pony from 1986. It was absolutely terrible. But I got fired off of that job. I got fired from that
Why?
job.
Why do you get what? Tell us the devastating story of getting fired from
Uh,
My Little Pony.
Well, I got fired because I was hired to do character design, and that's basically like a casting director. It's like I need the script says, "Hey, I need a giant bear to attack the lead character." Okay, great. So I draw 8 or 9 versions of a giant bear and show it to the producer. Oh, I like this one. That's what a character designer does. Any character you see in any movie, someone's designed it. But then once I got hired for that job, I was there for about a week doing that, and I was good at that. But then they put me on storyboards, which I'd really never done before. And so now I've got to do these storyboards, which are about 100 times more the amount of work. And you need to do them in a shorter amount of time. I mean, you have like, if I have a day to do a drawing for character design, I get about 2 days to do storyboards. I mean, my point is, it's a lot more drawing. You get paid a little more, but I just wasn't cut out for it at that time. I had never done it, and I got fired
Now,
because I couldn't do it.
storyboards, as I understand them, they're like a comic book. You tell the story from the
Right.
script
Mhm.
in an idea, so that everybody on the production gets an idea of what is happening.
Right.
It may not end up being exactly what happens as far as the final, but it tells the story
Yeah.
in a
It
set
comes
of
back to the
pictures.
old days at Disney where Walt Disney would have a big bulletin board and he'd put, okay, Bambi comes in here, Thumper comes in here. We see the owl come in here. We have a wide shot. So basically, like you said, it's a comic book, like a comic strip of what's going to happen in the story. It's almost like you're a director putting the camera down low. Is this dramatic? Is it going to be a high shot? How do we inform? So what I did was I got fired. I couldn't do the storyboards well enough. So I vowed from that time, I'm going to increase my skill set. So I learned how to do every job in the animation industry. I learned how to do character designs. I learned how to do storyboards. I learned how to edit. I learned how to do dialogue. I learned how to write. I'm like, I'm going to learn everything. So number one, I can't be fired again. Number two, I'll be more valuable. And I'd walk by the writer's room and I'd hear them talking and I'd kind of peek in because I was really, obnoxious. I'd peek in. Hey guys, what are you working on? Well, we need a joke. You got a joke here? And be like, what's going on? He would tell me the scenario. What about you did this? And I'd get a laugh. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, thanks. And I'd walk away. So I learned, and then we'd call me back. Hey, can you meet us for the writers meeting? And I'd be like, now I'm contributing story ideas, right? Which is what I really wanted to do. So by the time I got Fairly OddParents, I was able to do every part of the animation process.
Wow. Again, boy, you sure are lucky, Butch. Amazing. Like you sold a TV show. How'd you do it? Well, I learned everything. Okay, so let's go mechanically through. So you start off, you're doing American Tail, you're at Ruby Spears, you're working on My Pretty Pony, some other stuff there. Then you go to Marvel, or I'm sure it's all out of order.
With My Little
Marvel's
Pony.
first.
Right.
Okay.
Then I got fired.
And then how does it work all the way up to Fairly OddParents?
So I got fired. I'll just make it really brief. So I got fired from My Little Pony. I ended up getting a job at Ruby Spears Productions on the Punky Brewster Show, doing character designs. Hired by a wonderful man named Rick Gonzalez. He was a wonderful mentor of mine later on in life, but he hired me to do that. Worked on Punky Brewster. At the time I got hired at Ruby Spears, they were actually making a Rambo cartoon. They were a Rambo cartoon and a Chuck
That's
Norris
what Mike
cartoon.
Was writing. Yeah, Mike was writing
that's
the
where I
Rambo
met Mike.
cartoon. Yeah.
Mike was on that. So I met Mike there. And then I worked on that stuff. And then Ruby Spears, I started doing development because Joe Ruby was always pitching ideas to the studios. And he used to work at Hanna Barbera and he created Scooby-Doo for Hanna Barbera. Yeah, Joe Ruby did.
Wow.
So and Hanna Barbera was right down the street. So I'm like down the street from Hanna Barbera. And so Joe would always say, "Hey man, can you come help me develop some development artwork? I need some drawings here." And it was funny. Joe was the sweetest guy, but every idea he had was it'll be because Scooby-Doo was a dog that solved mysteries. So every show Joe pitched added a dog that solved mysteries, no matter what it was. It's a show about dolphins and a dog that solves mysteries. It's a
Right,
show,
what you know.
It's a show about outer space and a dog that solves mysteries. It was so funny, man. But Joe is the sweetest
I'm
guy.
gonna stop you on this road because again, I know just enough to be in trouble. I saw something on the interwebs where they were explaining, and you can do a much better job, that in Scooby-Doo and in a majority of the Hanna-Barbera stuff, because they were supplying so much animation for so cheap, that's why they were so Saturday morning cartoons, that almost every character had a collar or something so that you could only had to draw the face.
That was
Could
called,
you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's called limited animation. If you look back, real quick, most animation, the early animation in the 30s, Walt Disney stuff, Mickey Mouse stuff, Tom and Jerry stuff, were all made for the movie theaters. They were big, full animated cartoons because there was no television. So you'd go to the movie theater and they do these cartoons for the movies, which is why when television rolled around in the 50s, all of these cartoons that were done for the theater were now put on TV, right? Like Bugs Bunny, all the Warner Brothers stuff was all done for movie theater. But now they're running out of stuff to put on TV. How can we keep generating cartoons for TV? We have to do it a lot cheaper and faster, which is where the limited animation came in. So they'd have a collar on a character. So all they got to draw is his head as opposed to his whole body. Fred Flintstone has a 5 o'clock shadow around his face. So all they have to do is move his mouth while he talks. Barney Rubble too, so that's why they would do those limited things like that. But it was pretty genius. And they were able to churn out content. Now we talk about content today, but they could turn out content back then a lot quicker.
Yeah, and I remember even as a kid recognizing, I think you called it a sequence, the walk sequence for the Scooby Gang. They
the walk cycle. It was called a cycle.
The cycle, yeah.
Because that's a cycle. Real quick, a cycle is when the last drawing hooks up to the first drawing. So I'm taking a step, and then there's my first step, and my second step hooks up back to this drawing, and I can just repeat that over and over. Fred Flintstone runs by the same lamp couch and the same chair all the time, that kind of stuff.
I love learning all of this stuff from the dude who literally was drawing it. So, okay, continue on. I keep interrupting, but I want to know the steps, because at that time there was a lot of animation happening.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it was all done by humans.
Well, it was. So anyway, real quick, I end up at Hanna Barbera. I met Ruby Spears. Then I went over to Hanna Barbera for a while. And I was there. And while I was at Hanna Barbera, Cartoon Network bought it. Now we're in the early 90s, about 1993. Cartoon Network purchases Hanna Barbera. I'm there at the time. I'm working on a show called Droopy Master Detective, right? And
about a dog who solves crime.
Solves mysteries, exactly. So I am on this show. I'm a character designer. I'm a prop artist. I'm a storyboard guy now, all this stuff. And I'm also, Cartoon Network buys Hanna Barbera. I'll never forget, they called us all into the parking lot, this massive parking lot, and Ted Turner is there. And Ted Turner says, "We've just bought you guys. We're so grateful that you're a part of our team. We're changing Hanna Barbera's name to Cartoon Network." So it becomes Cartoon Network at the time. So now Cartoon Network, Hanna Barbera / they have the Hanna Barbera library, all that stuff. Now they bring in a guy called Fred Seibert to run Hanna Barbera Studios to produce things for Cartoon Network. Fred and I meet, become pretty good friends, and Fred institutes a thing called the Shorts program, meaning I want every artist in the studio, you're open, you have the opportunity to come up with a short cartoon if you want to. We'll make it if it's good. And now we have a chance to pitch our own idea. So I've gone from Butch Hartman working on other people's shows, other people's ideas. Now I've got a chance to pitch my own idea.
Yeah.
But I don't want to. Why? Because I'm in my comfort zone. Everybody wants to stay in the comfort zone. I'm working on a show. I've got my job.
What shows were you working on there?
I was working on Droopy Master Detective, and I was working on Tom and Jerry Kids, and I was working on a show called Fish Police at the time as well. That had just come out. I didn't really work much on that. So anyway, a lot of us start pitching ideas. I go, you know what? I'm going to try this. So I start pitching ideas. None of my ideas make it, but a few of the ideas that do make it are Dexter's Laboratory. That's one. Powerpuff Girls is another one. And Johnny Bravo is another one. So I start working on Dexter, and I start working on Johnny Bravo.
Wait, I just had a small little seizure. These are shows that were pitched, but not your shows, but pitched through the program.
Through the program. So these guys are the show. A couple of my shorts that I pitched didn't get picked up to be made anymore. I did get to make some shorts, some short cartoons, but they didn't get made into series. The ones I just mentioned got turned into series, right? So now I'm working on these. Now I get to be a director. I get to be a writer. I get to be a storyboard guy, and I become a director as well, like I said. And then there's a guy who comes in.
Okay, I'm so sorry. This is just the guy that doesn't know your business.
Got it.
When you say writer, I understand. You're telling the story.
Right.
When you're a director of an animated show, what do you do?
Just like any director of a live action movie would do, you call the shots. You're like, look, I want a dramatic opening here. Yeah, you look at someone, so you get a script from a writer, and you're like, okay, exterior spooky castle. A bat flies in a window, and we pan down to a bubbling cauldron. Okay, how is that going to look? So as a director, I got to go, look, here's what I want. I want this. I want you to push in. We'll do a double exposure here to dissolve to this. I want the light coming in this way. But then I want the vampire to walk in very slowly in the shadow, and then boom, we reveal it's like Scooby-Doo, and it's funny, right? You want to. So you basically set the shot up, and then you go in with the voice actors and you direct their voices as well. I need something more dramatic here. I need something more.
Now, when you're doing the directing part of it, are you drawing it, or are you talking just like you just did to us? And then
you're
there's
doing
another
both.
artist.
You're doing both. You're either now. I can also do the timing of the animation. What that is, if you're a live action director, you got a camera, you got lights. Okay, Bob. On action, walk over, pick up the phone, and action, walk over, cut. No, do it faster, that kind of thing, right? In animation, you're like, I want you to run in here and like take 6 frames, but then slow down. We're going to slow you down to 30 frames. And then, so it's knowing how to time the animation the old school way. So I had to learn all that stuff.
I got to say, that's got to be the most difficult job, because I've lived on sets my entire life. I know how a set works. But an animation director, you're talking to somebody that you'll get the product 6 months, a year later.
Yep, absolutely. And
so you're talking to the future.
You are, and you've got to envision the whole thing before it gets done. Like I've got to go like, okay, what does the phone look like? The phone's over here. Well, this character is really bumbling. He's going to bumble his way in, or this guy's really fast and he'll zip right over there. So you have to know who your characters are. You have to know the time of, and by the way, it's all timing like it's a story. You've only got, and I got to make sure that my timing fits in my episode length. The episode's only 22 minutes long. I can't go longer than that. And by the way, if a character is talking, that eats up footage. So you need to have action happen during the talking, and then there's a space between the next character's line. So you have that empty space. Anyway, it's a lot of.
I describe to my acting students that the entertainment is a bunch of different filters, and you have different filters filtering through it. So as a director of animation, are you filtering the character design that we talked about earlier?
Yep.
Or is that the producer? Or someone gives you 8 pictures of phones and you go, that phone, this scene.
The director has a very, very huge hand in everything. Usually the director is the producer too, but sometimes they're not. The producer usually is the one who the producer is the one who gets the money and controls the money normally, or makes sure the money's spent properly. Or sometimes the producer is just a friend who gets the job as a title of a producer.
But like famous Chuck Jones, Fritz Freeling, these are famous Warner Brother directors that we all know from like the Looney Tunes. Okay.
Exactly. Right.
Thank you for stopping down with me and explaining this. This is fascinating. So,
but you can also see a producer's fingerprints on something. Like if you look at The Grinch, and you look at Bugs Bunny, there's a lot of similarities there because, it's Chuck Jones's style. That's his vision. That's his fingerprint. You look at Fritz Frayling, who's another Warner Brothers director. He directed Bugs Bunny, but it's a different look and feel. Same with Robert McKimson, who did like Foghorn Leghorn. You look at the Disney directors. They've all got their own vibe. You look at Gendy Tartakovsky, who did Dexter's Lab and Samurai Jack. You look at Butch Hartman. We all have our own signature of what we kind of do in our style.
Well, I mean, obviously, I can call it out and not have you call it out. But if you look at Fairly OddParents and Danny Phantom, it's your style, it's your feel. We'll be back after these messages. Hey there, my name is Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV. And I also have this acting school called Working Actors School. And what we do there is we teach people to act using Zoom. So you can take an acting class with me and with a person in Connecticut, in Florida, and San Diego all at the same time, thanks to the miracle of Zoom. But we also teach kids. We have a great class called the Youth Weekly Class that's every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time. And it's for kids. It's for like 10 to 17. And we have a great group of kids right now, and it is ongoing. So if you know someone that wants to get into acting and has never done any acting but would love to try, why don't you have them try starting off with Youth Weekly? Just go to workingactorsschool.com and check us out. It's Youth Weekly every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Act 3, present day. So, okay, so you're there and you say that this one kid comes in, you're doing these short movies, and then you're about to introduce a new character, and I cut you off.
The new character is a young man named Seth MacFarlane, who you may or may not have heard of. He's done a few things. But Seth, in about 1993, we're working on Johnny Bravo, and this young kid shows up from the Rhode Island.
Bravo.
Hey, baby, what's happening, man? That's me, Johnny Bravo. So the great Jeff Bennett doing that voice. So Seth shows up. He's this young kid out of Rhode Island School of Design. He's got no money, but just learning the ropes. And he's one of the funniest freaking guys I ever met in my life. Hysterically funny. And so Seth and I become kind of really good pals, and we start writing Johnny Bravo episodes together. And one of my favorite ones we ever wrote was Johnny Bravo meets Adam West. And it's a really funny episode. So we wrote that.
So you've had a love of Adam West for a lot longer than when we saw him later on.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And so anyway, Seth and I are just really good pals. And then we both kind of went our separate ways because I ended up selling Fairly OddParents to Nickelodeon, and he ended up selling Family Guy to Fox. So we both kind of went, in our different separate directions. We've always kept in touch. I've been talking to him for quite a while. We just got back in touch recently. Because I got married and he became a billionaire, so there's all that. But we ended up, but to this day, one of the most talented, hysterical guys. I'm so grateful I got to meet him and get to know him way back in the day.
Well,
fact,
not only is it great to know that the guy that we know of as being Seth MacFarlane is a nice guy, but that talent and that it does play out. I mean, he was a funny guy from the beginning.
Yeah, he was a funny guy, but again, like all of us, like you're talking about working, Seth worked his tail off. He worked really hard, sold the short. It was originally called Larry and Steve, about a guy with a talking dog, and then they changed it to Family Guy. And I'll never forget when it premiered after the Super Bowl. I'm like, my God, my friend's cartoon is premiering after the Super Bowl on Fox. It was just blew my mind. And so anyway, we do these shorts at Hanna Barbera. Seth is a huge part of all that. He gets on Johnny Bravo with me. We're working on that. And then Fred Seibert, the guy who started the shorts program at Hanna Barbera, he left to go work over at Nickelodeon to sell short cartoons over there. And he ended up calling me going, hey, I'm like, Fred, you're leaving. What's going on? He's like, yeah, I'm going to Nickelodeon. You should come with me. And I said, well, I can't. I'm a very loyal person. I'm working for Johnny Bravo. I can't leave this job. And Fred just kept on me. I'd love you to come over here. I got one slot left. I'm doing this brand new show. It's a short cartoon series, all new short cartoons. I have one slot left. I'd love you to come over. And I said, well, I can't do it now. And so about 6 months go by and Johnny Bravo ends and my job is ending. And I'm like, oh my gosh, now I've got a new baby. My first daughter is born. I'm like, well, I need a job. Let me call Fred, see what's going on. I call Fred. Hey, man, how's it going? I go, good. Hey, is that offer still open? He goes, yeah, I got one slot left. Do you want it? I said, yep. He goes, you got an idea? I said, I got a great idea. He goes, great. I'll see you Thursday. It was Monday. Hung up the phone. I had nothing. I had nothing. So I sit back in my
Classic
chair.
Hollywood. I love it.
Classic. I had nothing. I'm like, I got nothing. I go, well, okay. I'm tired of jobs ending because in Hollywood, as you know, jobs end. Got to go to the next job. I'm like, well, I want to be the last one off the next show I'm on. I want to be the one who runs it and be the last one off. I'm like, I'm going to come up with my own show. So I sit there, pull a piece of paper. I go, as you said earlier, write what you know. So I'm like, I'm going to draw a little boy. I drew a little boy with big buck teeth, and I drew a hat on him. I go, okay, what could this kid do? I named him Timmy after my brother Timmy. And I go, okay, this is Timmy. What is Timmy doing? And I thought, well, Timmy could have science powers, but I couldn't do science because Dexter's Lab was already out, right? So don't want to do science. I went, I could maybe do magic. Magic's kind of interesting. I go, what if he had magic powers like Harry Potter or something? No, I don't want to give him the powers. Maybe I could give him a magic friend. That way in the story, they could get separated. So it's always I struggle to get back to him and help him. That's cool. I'll give him a magic friend. So I thought of a magic fairy godmother, like a Cinderella kind of thing, a boy version of Cinderella. So I drew Wanda for the very first time. I named her Venus. Her name was Venus. I'm like, well, Venus is cool, but I'd never seen a fairy godfather before. So I drew this guy with green hair. I drew this guy right here. I drew this dude with green hair.
That's so cool.
I know. I drew him, and I'm like, what am I going to call this guy? And Seinfeld had just released the episode where Kramer's first name got revealed. Do you remember what his first name was?
Yeah, Cosmo.
Cosmo Kramer. And I went, Cosmo's a killer name. I went, I'm just going to call him Cosmo. So I named him Cosmo, and I changed Wanda's name to Wanda, like Magic Wanda, like a one. So I got Cosmo, Wanda, and Timmy. That's pretty cool. Okay, maybe there is fairies. They could grant us wishes. And then I drew a little fish bowl where they could hide in the bowl because kids love having secrets. I came up with this idea, I'm not even kidding, in about 15 minutes. And I sat there and I drew it. And I went, I'm just going to go with this. And I started writing a script. Up to that time, I'd never really written a script on my own. I'd written a couple. But I was like, I always had a partner writing and stuff. I'm going to write this freaking script on my own. So I wrote a story by myself. And on Thursday, I went over to Nickelodeon, and they hadn't had the new Nickelodeon building built yet in Burbank. It was almost done. I went to this really ugly building they were renting in North Hollywood. And so I went over there. I pitched it to Fred. He loved it. And he goes, yeah, okay, let's make it. And so I left Hanna Barbera, and I went over to Nickelodeon, and that's kind of how it all started.
What an amazing, truly wonderful story, because it has everything. Honestly, you worked really hard, even though when and I've experienced this too, and I think creative people understand this. When you say it happened in 15 minutes, whether you want to talk about mysticism or divine intervention, however it works, you're channeling this kind of story. The big things that are super successful somehow kind of just make sense, and they come out quickly. And then it's a long process of messing it up or making it better. But the whole idea that for it to come out in 15 minutes, it's because one idea makes sense to go to the other. The South Park guys always say that it's not and then, it's therefore, which I think is a great story idea, which is when something happens, it's not and then they go to the park and then they go to the airport. It's and therefore they go to the park and then it explodes and therefore they have to go to the hospital.
Right. How do you
one
solve
thing?
Yeah. Right.
Right.
And that's how you drag an audience along with you, is to keep them compelled to keep watching, like what happens next, right? That kind of thing.
Exactly. So flash forward a little bit later, I'm friends with Sarah Noonan and a couple other people at Nickelodeon.
Oh yeah.
Who I end up going to Hollywood, the Halloween party at Nickelodeon. And it's like the House of Hartman. It's like Butch Hartman's it's like your area, because you have like this small, huge empire that is Nickelodeon. I worked at Nickelodeon for See Dad Run on the Nick at Night side.
Yeah, I remember that.
Nickelodeon, whenever they would have a press release, it would start off with Nickelodeon has been the #1 kid network for the last 90 years. There has been nothing but Nickelodeon, and it's all because of Butch Hartman. So when you start this show, Fairly OddParents, you leave that meeting, okay, we're going to do this. In that world, obviously there's a lot more commitment just to make a pilot or something. Do you then break down at that moment and do your series deal? Or is it like incremental so that you don't know exactly what you're in for?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not interested in numbers. I'm just interested in, did you leave there knowing that you were the showrunner of a TV show on Nickelodeon, or that you were the guy leading this idea for a pilot?
That's all it was. Yeah. At that time. So now all the stuff that's built up in my career up to this moment, all the stuff I've learned, all the stuff I trained for, all the stuff I forced myself to understand, everything I've mentioned to you thus far finally came to a point where I was ready for all of it. George Burns always said, what you're ready for usually shows up. And it's true, because I could never have done Fairly OddParents back in the 80s when I first started. I didn't have the talent. I didn't have the wisdom. I didn't have the control of my emotions. I didn't have the savvy. And by the way, there's a lot of politics that go along with this stuff too, and connections. Everything I've ever successfully sold or created that got on television was because of a connection that I had. I knew somebody who could get me into a meeting. Even though I had a track record, it takes time to get those meetings set up. And knowing people helps a lot. I tell every artist I ever meet, please take your headphones out and look up and meet people. Quit being the little introvert. And I'm an artist, so I understand this. You want to sit at your desk with your headphones on and your Netflix on, and you just want to draw and then go home. And that's fine if you want to do that. But if you do that, you're going to severely limit your creativity and your success rate. So what I wanted to do at the time, I sold this one pilot. That means I got a one pilot deal. So I got 3 months to make this pilot and then get it done. So in that 3 months, what I did was I had a really cool, now I'm good at storyboarding by this point. So I did my Fairly OddParents storyboard. I go to Nickelodeon in the crappy building in North Hollywood, and I'm doing my storyboard. Everybody else who sold a short cartoon is in there. There's a whole bunch of other people in there, all making their own ideas. Got my storyboard done, and Nickelodeon looked at my storyboard and loved it so much they gave me extra episodes of the Fairly OddParents to do, extra short cartoons. So I got 3 more shorts out of that one storyboard. So now I've got 4 shorts to do, and it's pretty much just me and like 2 other people helping me. I don't really have a crew of any kind. So I'm making a short cartoon. I'm writing the stories. I'm developing who Timmy is, who Cosmo. Pretty much the only characters in the show at this point are Timmy, Cosmo, Wanda, and Vicky, and the evil babysitter. And I don't even show Timmy's parents' faces. I'm trying to be clever and not show their faces and all that stuff.
So again, I'm going to slow down just for 1 second. Vicky would then be your antagonist as opposed to the teacher at this point. You haven't added the bigger antagonist.
Teacher doesn't exist at this point. It's only Vicky. She's the evil babysitter voiced by the incredible Gray Delisle. And and Cosmo and Wanda are Darren Norris and Suzanne Blakesley. And Timmy Turner, the very first Timmy Turner I ever hired, her name was Mary Kay Bergman, and she sadly passed away after I recorded several episodes with her. And that's a whole other story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then Tara Strong took over, who did just a phenomenal job from that point on.
Yeah.
So ended up making 4 short cartoons. And then the next year they gave me 6 more to do.
In the same period or in that same 6 months, or how long?
No. It took me like a year and a half to do 4 shorts, pretty much by myself. Okay. And now my deal's growing a little bit longer. They're increasing my deal a little bit. I'm able to extend my contract a little bit. And then then I get to make 6 more shorts. So I've got a total of 10 shorts I've made now. After about 3 years, from 1997 to the year 2000, I'm making 10 short Fairly OddParents cartoons that are being shown on a show called the Oh Yeah Cartoon Show, which was the short cartoon show that I was working on.
Now, if you've watched these cartoons at the end, was it Frederated?
Frederated, yep.
And that's Fred Seibert? Is that
Fred Seibert? Frederator, yeah. Frederator.
And
yeah.
So was he a producer on these type of things? Fred
was the producer. He would bring guys like me and all these other guys in to do short cartoons. So so many great short cartoons came out of that. So Fairly OddParents now, they got 10 episodes, and they focus test it in front of a group of kids. And so from that point, and by the way, focus testing, if you guys out there don't know, it's one of the most terrifying moments of your life, where they put your cartoon on in front of a bunch of random children, and you're watching from behind a pane of glass, and they can't see you, but you can see them, and you aren't allowed to say anything. And they just watch the cartoon and give their opinion. And you're like, it's terrifying. So anyway.
Before the internet trolls, there were 6-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, we ended up, the kids loved it, and Nickelodeon loved it. And they told me, we're going to give you 6 half hours of a series now. So I had my short cartoons were over here. Now I've got a series. So now I can do 6 brand new episodes, 2 episodes each, in each half hour. Now I've got 12 more stories to tell. And that's when the full-blown Fairly OddParents series was born, with a theme song, with the new, with a whole crew of like 30 people. It's going to go on the air on this date. Here's a new deal. Here's your new contract, all that. Now I've got to run a staff of people, but now I'm ready for it. I've been doing this for a few years now. I can do this, but still scary.
It would be called for live action. It's called showrunner. I don't know. Is it the same?
Showrunner? No, still called showrunner. Okay. Executive producer, final say on everything. Other than,
is it hard for you, because I was the showrunner on my wife and I on See Dad Run?
Yeah.
Was it hard for you to delegate? Because again, like you're saying, an animator you're literally looking at your hand and your thoughts are being put on paper, but now you've got to put it out to all these other talented people to get your same thoughts the way that you want them. Is that hard?
Very hard. For me, it was very hard to delegate because, again, I was at that point, I knew this was my shot. I have a shot now. I've got a series. I even told people this is going to be a number one series. I would tell people all the time this will be a number one series, and it was for a while. Fairly Odd
Yeah.
Parents we would regularly beat SpongeBob in the ratings all the time. Now SpongeBob is still the king of Nickelodeon. We were kind of the Donald Duck. They were the Mickey Mouse. I was the Donald Duck. But I will take Donald Duck any day of the week. I love Donald Duck. You know, so but Fairly Odd Parents, there was a regular time, and I'll just talk ratings a little bit. Ratings,
Yeah.
they don't really do ratings as much as they used to. But back in the day, let's say a 5 was a great rating. You got a
5?
Oh no, dude! I would get 10s. I would get 11s.
Lord!
We would get 10s and 11s. We'd get 12 sometimes. And Nickelodeon was like, "Wow."
That's like 90% of the children watching television is watching that show.
No, dude. I have photos somewhere of me standing. I wish they were digital, but they're not. They're actual photos. But I of me standing next to a board with a 10 on the board. Anyway, just really, really awesome. They would the head of Nickelodeon would always send me newspaper. He would rip parts out of the newspaper of the ratings. He'd send them to me, and I framed a couple of them. I have those in frames. But Fairly Odd Parents became a bona fide hit because of the writing, because of the character development, because of the way we would just and you saw all this off the wall stuff I got to do. I really had an amazing crew. You can't do it by yourself. I had some incredible people helping me, great voice actors, performances.
It's such an amazing story about how it started. Yeah, I would love to do a part 2 where we can talk about the shows individually between,
Well, let's talk about. We can do it. Let's do
Phantom.
it. Yeah, I'd love to do a part 2 because we got Danny Phantom. I got Tough Puppy. I got Bunsen as a Beast. I got all my new stuff. We could do like several.
Because there's a 10-year period there where you're just churning out excellent television.
Yeah.
So then let me just leave with this question for you. When you're delegating to all these people, obviously each individual aspect is important.
Mm-hmm.
But for television, I'm wondering, once you set the look, is it then the writer's room that's the most important for you, or the actor, the voice direction? What would you prioritize?
For me,
animation?
that's an excellent question. I hope people learn from this because it would really help these young people out there, fledgling people doing this. For me, it all came down to writing, all of it, because I thought if I don't write a good story, no one's going to care. I had seen so many cartoons come and go, beautiful looking, but no one cared. Even movies. How many bad movies are made every year? There's way more bad movies made than good ones. That's why the good ones stand out, because there's so few good movies, because the writing is so excellent. It's the writing, performance, it all comes together, direction, whatever it is. For every Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's 9 million other terrible adventure movies, right? So it depends, but I wanted to be Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm not saying I'm Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I was always like, I want to be Raiders. I want to be Star Wars. I want people to love this show that much. I even started with the theme song. I'm like, look, I wrote the theme song. I didn't do the music for the theme song. A guy named Ron Jones did. But I said, Ron, here's the deal. Here's the lyrics. I want a Flintstones level theme song. I want when a kid's in another room and he hears my theme song come on, he runs into the room because he knows the show is on. Flintstones, meet the Flintstones. I love
your theme song. I could probably sing it to you already, but it tells the story. It sets it up, which is classic, so that you don't need a primer. You just watch the credits and you're into the story.
But Timmy is an average kid.
Average kid.
And that's me writing in my room at 2 a.m. I've got to come up with these lyrics. And then we actually recorded the theme song in a church in Utah. It was a recording studio in Utah. That's a whole story in itself. It was amazing. We had like a 30-piece orchestra recording this theme song. It was amazing. Yeah. So it was
okay. So yeah, I agree with you. When we were doing the sitcom, it's the writer's room, which is one of the most magical places in the world to me. They bring you food and you try to crack jokes. And I
would live in 2 worlds. I'm an artist too. So I'd be with the artists doing storyboards and character designs. Then I would leap over to the writer's room. And at this point I was a pretty savvy writer. I'm like, this joke's not going to work. This joke the timing's not right. I was all about clarity. if the audience doesn't get it, no one's going to laugh. You have to make sure that everybody, and we never wrote down to kids ever. Oh, it's got to be a kid's joke. We would write jokes that would kill us in the room. Now, how do we make it a kid joke? We like, well, we can't do a joke about an IRS thing, but we could do a piggy bank joke. You know what I'm talking about? We can make it relate to a piggy.
Right.
So that type of thing. But we have so many adult jokes on Fairly OddParents. I have kids coming up to me all the time saying, I was 10 when I saw it. I didn't get it, but now I get that joke. I'm like, good. See, I knew you would get the joke later on in life.
Well, and the way that you wrote out your characters and structured your characters to support story, you had Cosmo, who was an idiot. You had Timmy, who was young, and Wanda was smart. But between all of them, no one looked down on anyone, which was a big deal as far as I was concerned. When you're watching as an adult, you want everyone to have kind of like a respect for the other people. But also you could just count on the characters to be consistent, which is really, really fantastic.
Right. So we needed to make sure that people, my one mandate was, I don't care if these characters are in a white room with nothing going on. The audience has to want to watch them. They got to be funny characters. I always looked, The Office came out later after we started, but I said, The Office is a perfect example. It takes place in the most boring environment of all time, an office, but the characters are so hilarious, you'll watch them no matter what they do. So that's what I want.
Yeah.
I want that level of comedy.
Well, we're going to move on to the questions now, but stay tuned for another part of the show where we talk just about all the theories and crazy things in the characters in the show. I just,
by the way, we'll do a part 2, part 3. I have so much to talk about. And I hope the audience finds it interesting. I have so many things I could go into.
Oh my God, it's fascinating. Dude, the whole idea of we all love cartoons. We've all watched them, but to find out literally like what an in-betweener does to me, and I've been in business since I'm a zygote.
I know, man. Your
really,
career,
really cool.
You have an epic career, my friend.
We'll be back after these messages. Hey there, my name is Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV. And I also have this acting school called Working Actors School. And what we do there is we teach people to act using Zoom. So you can take an acting class with me and with a person in Connecticut, in Florida, and San Diego all at the same time, thanks to the miracle of Zoom. And besides classes, I also offer a one-on-one session. It's an hour just between you and me working on a particular piece of material, whether it's for an upcoming audition or maybe you're working on something and you need to have that breakthrough moment. These are really, really fun, and they're really, really great because they're really personalized and intense in all the good ways that intense can be. So if you're working on something, if you want to break through, if you want to have a one-on-one session where you're not working with other people, this is the way to do it. All the information is in the classes page on workingactorsschool.com. Act 4, questions. All right, so here we are at the questions. Here is the first question, is called That's SheauxBiz. What would you say is the most Hollywood moment in your life?
Wow. The most Hollywood moment in my life. I would probably say when I sold the show Danny Phantom, I was sitting at a table with the head Nickelodeon executives at dinner. Fairly OddParents was going so well, they wanted to instantly pick the show up. It was just me and these two guys. They wanted to pick the show up. I'm like, great. How many more episodes? Oh, this many. Great. Do you have anything else? And I said, well, I got this show about a kid. He hunts ghosts. Let's make it. Boom. Just like that. It was that quick. At the dinner table I think it was Chasen's in Beverly Hills. It was in Beverly Hills, the whole Hollywood thing. And that was pretty epic. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
By the way, which is really interesting, it's the second That's SheauxBiz answer that took place at Chasen's. Someone else, their moment happened at Chasen's, which it's a classic answer. Okay, That's SheauxBiz part 2, the most embarrassing Hollywood moment.
Oh, geez. Oh, here you go. I can't say any names, of course, but I went to a pitch meeting for a movie. I had an animated movie I was selling, and it was going really well. Pitch meeting after pitch meeting, going really well. I finally go in to meet one of the producers who's going to ultimately say yes or no to the movie. And I go in, and I'm with like 3 or 4 other people, and then the main dude is right there talking. And he goes, any movies you don't like lately? Blah, blah, blah. We love your idea. I'm like, right. I said, one of these movies that I just recently didn't care for lately, and I named this movie, and it was his movie. and I didn't do my homework, and I named the movie. There was a physical pain was felt in the air. I felt it. I went, oh God, what did I just say? And needless to say, I never had another meeting with the person, and the movie never materialized. And so that was bone crushingly horrible. But yeah, that was pretty bad.
I've had that almost exact moment. It's horror. It's so painful. Okay, show me the money. Your biggest missed financial opportunity. And again, I'm not looking for numbers, but in this business, you'll run up against people and you'll have opportunities, and they can sometimes be very, very lucrative or not. So, what's your biggest missed financial opportunity?
Now that I'm thinking, that's a very great question. I think my biggest missed financial opportunity early on in my career, I was still just an artist. Someone offered me to be a director on The Simpsons. And I was scared. I went, I don't think I'm ready for that. And I wasn't, but I could have done pretty cool. I would have been a great opportunity. To work at The Simpsons, this is like in 1987 when it first came out.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I just wasn't ready. I was terrified. So that would have been a great opportunity.
That's yeah, for sure. Okay, so Show and Tell. As a teenager, what was your favorite poster on your room, and how'd you get it?
Oh, the Farrah Fawcett poster. I was younger than a teenager. The classic Farrah poster from 1977. By all means, was my favorite. And how did I get it? I think my mom bought it for me or something like that. So yeah.
Very progressive mom. Like you up, mom. Well done, Mom.
Absolutely.
Okay, Sheaux Down. What's the best thing you've ever done, and what's the worst thing you've ever done professionally?
Oh, professionally. Wow.
Yeah.
Man, the worst thing I've ever done is the movie Dougal that came out. That's a whole other story. I was hired to fix that movie and make it better by Harvey Weinstein way before all the stuff happened. That's probably the worst professional thing I've ever done. And the best thing I've ever done, man, I would say my professionally now, not kind of my wife and children, my relationship with God and Jesus and all that, but I would say my professional career, I'd say my entire Nickelodeon career is probably the best thing I've ever done professionally up to this point. And I know there's some other.
If I have to press a little bit more, and this is your favorite, this doesn't have anything to do with any of the people you work with. This is in your heart. Yeah. What's your favorite? Who's your favorite character?
Oh man. Of mine or anything I've ever watched?
No, yours. What your favorite? The character you hold closest to your heart.
Oh, gosh, my God! Oh man, it's so hard. It's like choosing your children. It is. I'd probably say simply because he was the first, and I worked on him the longest. Probably Timmy Turner, probably. And I'm not saying
that's a great answer.
No, I have so many other characters I love so much. Danny Phantom's another one. I mean, but Timmy started it all, and I had the most fun with him and worked on him the hardest.
And now, of course, I have to ask you, who's your favorite child?
Oh, my favorite child.
No. Okay. And finally,
Pat, you're my favorite child, of course.
Very good answer. Very good answer, which leads to this question. Show me some love. What's your favorite performance of mine?
Oh, my God, Pat. I mean, well, I would have to say Back to School with Mark Harmon. Is it Back to School? Is that summer
school?
Summer school. With the great Richard Horvitz.
Yes.
Epilogue.
Okay, well, here we are. We are in the epilogue. Any plugs that you'd like to plug for this show? We can talk about anything more in the other part, but what would you like to plug? What's up? What's up with Butch Hartman right now?
Right now, I have my own animation studio, and we are doing all kinds of fun stuff. The main thing I got going on right now is a Bible cartoon called The Garden Cartoon. You can find it everywhere on Apple, Amazon. You can find it on Google Play. We're on YouTube. I have my own garden cartoon app, but it teaches kids the Bible like in a fun way, like VeggieTales did. It's completely, we own the whole thing. We're doing a whole bunch of other pilots. I've got like 5 brand new pilots that I am currently getting out into the marketplace right now. But dude, we are going for it huge. I got all these ideas we're making. So you can find me on TikTok under Butch Hartman. You can find me on Instagram, Butch Hartman. And just, come out, man. I love seeing fans. I go to Comic-Cons all the time. I'll be in Miami at the Comic-Con in Miami in February. And and I'm going to be doing another thing in April in Anaheim at WonderCon because they're releasing some brand new Fairly OddParents Funko Pops, which I'm excited about, and I'll be signing those down there.
Well, dude, I can't thank you enough for your time. You were literally the emperor of a whole new company, and you've got all these things happening. I'm really super proud of you and a huge fan of just from, Fairly Odd Parents, because my kid grew up on it, to your TikToks where I get to watch you draw in different styles. You were drawing a Spider-Man that I saw the other day, which was just fantastic.
Oh yeah, thank you, buddy. And Pat, it's great to see you again, man. I love the fact that we've kept in touch all these years, and who knew where we'd come after all those years. But
Right?
I'm just grateful that you're doing so well, and I love being on your show. And thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, and I will hold you to doing a part 2 so we can dig
I'd
down
love to.
into
Yeah.
the lore and all the different shows and how they connect. And I want to talk movies. I mean, you have movies, all these things.
So much lore, dude. I have so many fun adventures to talk about, and I hope people find them interesting.
I'm sure they will. Okay, man. Thanks so much.
All right, bye. See you later.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux, Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. I'm really, really glad you're here and checking out the podcast. It is an audio podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It's a video podcast over on YouTube or on Spotify or wherever you get the video ones. All of my socials are Working Actors School on TikTok, on Instagram, and on YouTube. Please check us out. If you want any information about the school, it is at workingactorsschool.com. We've got classes going on all the time. And again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux, Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.